Hello. This is the lecture or talk on preparing for the final exam. Um, Again, my apologies for the informality of this, and my apologies for needing to do it this way. I hope this will help you. Also, you can review this talk at any time, since again, a lot of you still have exams 3 and 4 to submit before getting to the final. So you can watch this video as you will, as often as you will, as you're actually writing your final exam. So I think it's a good, I think it's a good solution, and we'll go from there. So make the best of things. Okay, so that being said, in terms of the preliminaries, I will be posting this video in the module final exam. So actually on the syllabus, this is week 16, lecture 2, but it will actually be posted in the module final exam as the first entry, just preparing for the final exam video. And I think I've already gone through how you access it. You click on the link in the module, you'll get a gray screen. You click on the link on top, and then that should bring up the video. If there's any problems with any of this, just let me know. Obviously, maybe not obviously, but I'm not a technology person, so if there's technological issues, I don't know, but if there's something I've done or something that you're not sure about, you can ask me, and I may end up having to say, well, you should ask IT about that. But hopefully it will all go well. Also, I want to stress, too, that you can always email me. Again, we can also meet over Zoom if you would like to talk individually about preparing for the final. And we'll go from there. Now, I will make a brief announcement about this as well, but as of basically now, I won't be giving much, if any, feedback on the work that you submit. I may, for exams 3 and 4, depending on my time and ability to do so. But on the final, there will not be any feedback. So it's just kind of the way things work because I have a very short turnaround time. I will be happy, more than happy, to discuss with any of you your grade and your final after the grades are submitted. Now, you should also be aware, and I hope this is really important, that the grade that you will see once the finals are graded and posted, the grade you see in the grade book may or may not be the final grade that you receive that I will submit to the registrar. It will not be lower than the grade in the grade book. It could certainly be higher because what I do everybody's grade individually and look at the overall profile, the development, has there been progress and betterment, so to speak, and we go from there. And so then I assign the final grade, which again will never be lower than the grade in the grade book, but it could be higher. So after that is submitted, then I am happy and would encourage you to contact me to say, can we talk about why I got what I got? If you can convince me that I've graded you too low, I will certainly change your grade. That's easily possible. Whether that is simply a miscalculation of the math, or if you can convince me that I misread your final. I've never had a student come to me and be able to convince me of that, actually. And that's not trying to say to discourage you from coming and asking. I will never lower your grade if you do. I will never say, oh, no, actually, I was too generous on this. Instead of a B plus, you should have gotten a C. I will never lower your grade, even if I tell you that's the evaluation I would have given it if I was doing it more leisurely and more rigorously, so to speak, because grades are, I know I've probably mentioned this before, but grades are, in my view, are not objective, absolute standards. There are different methods of grading, different bases of grading, different reasons for assigning grades. And in short, on the finals, especially since I have such a short turnaround, I tend to look for what's there rather than what's not there. Whereas kind of the exams during the semester, I often tend to focus on what's not there. And that usually leads to the final being graded, let's say, more advantageously to all of you than maybe some of the exams. But the exams are there to kind of try to set the standard of what I expect. And by this time, I think most people anyway have submitted at least exams 1 and 2. You have a sense of those expectations based on my comments. And the same will apply for 3 and 4. And again, I will give feedback on exams 3 and 4 as they are submitted to the extent that I can. But it's detail. Detail is a big issue. It is pieces of information that are necessary for 2 reasons. Number 1, they give substance to the concepts. They give substance to vague statements. Vague statements are important. Vague statements of, the world history began in the 16th century. Okay, great, but then explain what you mean by that with the details. Now, the list of terms to know are a good guide to the details. And as I've said before, I think in preparing for the other exams, it does not mean that I quantify and expect you to have some certain percentage of those terms on the list of terms to know within your essay. But the more of them you can include, the better. Now, with the final essay, which I will shortly just read to you, not because I don't think you can read it yourselves. I think certainly you can. I hope you will. And I hope you'll analyze it and ponder it. But just to help give you a sense of how I formulated it and why. And so my reading it will give you, I think, insight into the question, what's behind it itself. Before that, if you haven't already looked at it, I think I read it to all of you the first day of class or so, because this is really the semester project was the idea behind this. Also include geographical variation. I know I've talked about this from the beginning, that the focus of the lectures anyway is Eurocentric, and the textbook is written from a Eurocentric perspective. And I've argued that, okay, yes, that's a bias, but that everyone is biased because bias is just the place of observation, the point of observation. There is no neutral, objective point of observation of history or of anything else. And my area of specialty, as you know, is the Middle Ages, late Middle Ages, Reformation in Europe. And I think it would be foolhardy of me or just completely arrogant if I tried to lecture you on the history of China, the development of civilization in China throughout the ages, or India, or South America, Native Americans, because these are areas that I don't know. And I've talked about ignorance and how everyone is ignorant, and I think I admitted I certainly should have or would have, and I know I did because I feel it very strongly, that my ignorance is vastly greater than my knowledge. But I don't want to share with you my ignorance. I wanted to share with you what I do know. And I've tried to do that, but placing it within a world context, to be aware of the connections and the developments here, there, and everywhere. And in some ways, Roberts in the textbook does that as well. I mean, he does write about the various different geographical regions and territories and civilizations and peoples. And that is the basis for the information of the world aspect, or the history of the world in that sense, leaving that distinction between the history of the world and world history open, so to speak. And we come back to the title of this course, too, is Perspectives on World History, too. And so this course has offered you my perspectives on it all. There's no such thing as the history of the world from the beginnings to approximately 1800, or the world history to approximately 1800. That's not a set thing. There are various different perspectives based on differing sets of knowledge, understandings, information, evidence. And the final exam is designed to give you the opportunity to bring it all together for yourselves. It is an impossible question to answer. And as all of them and all of the exams, there are no right or wrong answers. There are good answers and bad answers. And as in all of the exams, the basis of my grading your exam will be how well you apply the course material to the given question. And here I don't just mean some of the course material, I mean all of the course material. Every lecture, both the written lecture and the in-class lectures, and anything that I've posted in a video, which is for this course, there's only been a couple, I think, is part of the course material. Now, it's impossible for you to use all of it, and much of it would not be necessarily relevant to the question. Okay. But what do you choose? How do you analyze all of the information that is available? How do you choose what to bring to make your case? And that is still something that is valid for the final, as it was for each of the 4 exams. The document historical argument, make an argument and defend it. I'm not going to grade your opinions on things. I assume you have opinions. I want you to have opinions. That's all good. It'd be fun to go out, over a beer and talk about our opinions back and forth. But that's not what I'm going to be grading. I can grade, as I've said, for every exam, how well you use the course material, analyze the course material, and apply it to the problem given you, which is the question on the exam. And how well you argue your case. Because this, like every other exam, the final is no different, is an argumentative essay. You have to persuade me. I'm the judge, using that legal argument analogy. I'm the judge. You have to persuade me based on your presentation of the evidence. And the evidence is the course material. Now, I know I've said much of that before. I just think it bears repeating because it is so important. And the final is so important, in my view, which therefore should be in your view too, because the whole course culminates in the final exam. The exams 1 through and 4, as well as the quizzes, are all designed to help prepare you for this final exam. And you can use material from your previous exams, from the essays 1, 2, 3, and 4, or exams 1, 2, and 3, and 4. You can cut and paste it from those. Make it functional. This is an independent essay, so I don't want to see, part A is your essay 1, part B is your essay 2, part C is your essay 3, and part 4 is, D is your essay 4, then you write an introduction and conclusion, you're done. That won't cut it. This is an independent, distinct problem. But you can use that material if it fits in naturally, so to speak, within your argument and presentation. So keep that in mind. Okay, you don't have to cite it. And whatever you do, don't make references to your previous exams. Don't say, well, as I wrote in my first exam, blah, blah, blah. Don't do that. Just repeat it, if that makes any sense. Okay, so let's look at the question. And here, I hope I don't screw this up by clicking on the wrong thing and stopping this, which I've done before. Get this up, and this is a long question. Human beings have demonstrated an overwhelmingly important trait from their very beginnings on into modern times, their adaptability for their own survival and benefit. In adapting to their environments, humans have produced both technological and scientific advances and increased cruelty and violence. This creativity and ingenuity of human beings have shown no boundaries and are reflected in their art, culture, belief systems, and various socio-political structures. Human beings as a species, Homo sapiens, have been referred to as humans the maker, Homo faber, as political animals, animal politicum, Homo politicus, as the insatiable animal, Homo insatiabile, among others, all of which illustrate part of what makes human beings human. Actually, it should be Homo insatiabilis. Sorry, it should be Animal insatiabile, Homo insatiabilis. Anyway, that's my error there in my own Latin, which I'm embarrassed about. Anyway, they've all illustrated part of what makes human beings human. In all their adaptations and strivings, humans, one could argue, have always sought to be, quote unquote, happy and to find happiness, whether in power, money, the accumulation of material goods and ideas and beliefs, etc. Yet somehow humans as such have never achieved a state of happiness in the sense of satisfaction and equilibrium. Humans always are striving, always seeking, always wanting, quote unquote, more. While such descriptions may not apply to each and every human being who has ever lived, as a whole, they seem to be irrefutable. Based on what we have seen in this course, I think this is really getting to the question. The first part is kind of setting it all up, framing the question. Based on what we have seen in this course, is there a defining characteristic or, quote unquote, nature of human beings that is common across cultures and political divides? Now, that is kind of the core of the question. Is there a common nature of human beings or defining characteristics that applies to all human beings everywhere and always has? There is no right or wrong answer to that. We can't, take out and dissect a human being and find, oh, here's the nature, and throw it on the examination table and say, oh, yeah, and the nature of this person is the same as the nature of this person over here. Look at that. We can do that with human hearts, with human livers, etc., but we can't do that with nature. What is it? Is human nature anyway? So that is why there is no correct answer to this question. There are good answers and bad answers. And so it's asking you to say, okay, answer this question. Is there a defining characteristic or nature of human beings that is common across all cultures and political divides based on what we have seen in this course? And then, and what accounts for the wide diversity of human cultures and civilizations? So here we have what is common and then the diversity of it, because we also see within human beings great diversity of cultures and civilizations throughout the globe. Has it been geography in terms of the diversity in cultures and civilizations, in terms of specific locations in which various human groups have settled and the resources available therein, various common beliefs, or social and political organization? Or is it some combination of factors? In short, what has been the relationship between human nature, if there is such a thing, and the inherent adaptability of humans? Now that it really is focusing the question a little bit further. And how do our answers to such questions, either based on pre-given assumptions or derived from study and analysis, affect how we view world history as such, at least until approximately 1800? And that gets at the reflection of our own assumptions and views. If I were to say there is no such thing as a common human nature, is that position, whether I just assume that, or whether based on analyzing all the course material, if my conclusion is, no, there is no such thing as a basic human nature that's common to everyone, how does that position affect how we understand the development of world history to approximately 1800? Or if we say, yes, there is a common factor of being human, something that makes all of us human, anywhere and for all times, in terms of at least Homo sapiens. We can also talk about Homo neanderthalis. Neanderthals, is there something common there too? How does that affect how we view the history and development of world history? that's where it gets at how do our answers to such questions affect how we view world history. Those are the central questions of this exam. And it says, answer these questions. This is kind of the instructions. In an essay, 10 to 12 pages minimum, based on the course material, presenting evidence from the textbook and lectures to support your position with reference to various cultures and or civilizations from 1, the ancient world, textbooks 1 and 2, 2, the classical age, textbook 3, 3, the age of diverging traditions, textbook book 4, and 4, the making of the European age, textbook book 5, within the reflective context of what history and its doing is. So that is really saying, okay, we've had these 4 books, or 5 books, as the organization of the textbook is. And we've had the 4 parts of the course. From each part of the course, broadly chronological, even if the lectures are overlaps. You need to discuss various cultures and civilizations from each of those periods in order to answer the question. So it's very broad. You can say, okay, there's 4 different sections plus an introduction and a conclusion. That's 6 different sections. If I have to talk about 2 or 3 different civilizations or cultures in each one, that then becomes 8 to 12 different sections or subsections. And so it's like, oh my gosh, there's not a lot of space there. There's not a lot of time. It has to be pretty superficial almost. Make the most of it. And there is no need to limit yourself to that 10 to 12 page minimum. You can write as much as you want. And the adage for me is more is always better as long as it's pertinent. So if you break it down in that way, you have opening paragraph, then section 1 in terms of your thesis, presenting your thesis, answering the question. Section 1, the ancient world, in which you deal with 2 or 3 different civilizations. Section 3, the classical age, 2 or 3 different ones. The age of diverging traditions, next one. So you come up with 8 different, at least, sections or subsections of the exam, plus the introduction, and then your conclusion. And it needs to be geographically diverse from across the globe. You don't have to have the same ones all the time, but you can do that. You could say, okay, we're going to trace these developments in, India, Mesoamerica, and Europe in the ancient world, classical age. You can do it that way, or you can choose different examples for each one. The point is to look at the diversity and to argue, is there or is there not a commonality within the diversity? And then to reflect on how our understanding affects our interpretation of that question. How do going back to reading the exam, how do our preconceived answers to these questions affect our analysis, reflect the context of how do our preconceived answers to these questions affect our analysis of the past itself and striving to come to an understanding? In many ways, the question is intended for you to implot your own understanding of world history in your own grand narrative based on the course material. Now, grand narratives, I talked about early on in the lectures. Implotment, I talked about as well in terms of how do we put things together, what comes first, how do you construct the plot is really implotment. You have all these different disparate components, and then you have to put them together in a plot. That is implotment. This is not asking for your response to or your opinions on. It's asking for how do you construct this and why based on this question that you're being asked, this problem that you're being confronted with and have to take a stance on and argue your case. Now, part of this too, you could say, in terms of how do our preconceived answers to these questions affect our analysis of the past, you could almost approach it as a compare and contrast in terms of what did you think about world history to approximately 1800 when you before you started this course, and what do you think about it now? not even so much in terms of the information that you've learned or the conceptualization, but just your assumptions. Have they changed? And if so, why and why not? And what has made them change? In some ways, that could be a good way to approach this, because I don't include that in here in the instructions. I'm not saying compare and contrast your own grand narrative pre and post course. It's saying based on the course material, how do you argue your case for your position on this, with the realization that our understanding affects how we implot it. It's a circle. Now, that was more than just reading. That was elaboration as well. Also, I hope helped you break down the question. And that first part, you can disagree with. You can take issue with it. But that first part, even though I assert as this is irrefutable or unquestionable, humans always wanting more, blah, blah, blah. You can say, well, no, that's not quite the case. But that's not the focus of the question. The focus of the question is this issue of, is there a commonality of being human? What makes human beings? And if so, then how do we explain the diversity of cultures and on what basis? And how do we see that developing over time? Now, it is a complex question, without question. It is developing your own perspective on world history to approximately 1800. That's the grand narrative. When I say your own grand narrative, what is now your perspective on the development of world history, the history of the world, whatever you want to call it, up until approximately 1800, based on the course material. That's what this is about. And that is so important, I think, because it forces us to place ourselves within the historical context, not just of our individual location or individual state or individual family, state, city, country even, but into the context and perspective of the entire global development of human cultures and civilizations worldwide. Because we all are a part of that, whether we're aware of it or not. That's what this is getting at. Now, cite the textbook, cite the lectures. That's the pieces of evidence you can present to the judge. Argue your position. Try to persuade me that you are right. They can say, well, I'm just going to then repeat what you've told us. Well, you could do that, and I'd be reading along saying, yeah, great, you got it. Oh, yeah, excellent. Or you could say, I'm going to have fun with this and argue against you, which is great, but you have to do it well and present the evidence. And then it's like, whoa, that is impressive. Then if you just disagree without making your case, that's not going to be impressive, because then you're just ignoring the evidence. And the perspective that I have presented to you is part of the course material, if that makes sense. So I hope you can see that and grasp that the perspective that I have presented to you in this course, and then go further, either refining it, deepening it, further supporting it, arguing with it, refuting it. But it has to be there too, that the understanding of that perspective that has been presented, the course material, needs to be there. So I hope this helps you approach the final exam. I hope it gives you a way forward, a structure, things to be aware of. I would say review the list of terms to know. I would say make an outline of your essay. Don't just sit down and start writing. Include as much information and details and specifics as you can. Don't worry about the length unless you feel that you've written everything you possibly can think of to write and you're on page 6. That would be a problem. But if you are writing and you're on page 15 or 18 and you think, oh my God, I have to cut this back, don't think that for a second. Don't think that for a second. There's no use in including more things just to make things longer, but to completely show me what you have grasped and how you put it all together in detail, there's no limit to that. Okay. I think that's just about what I have to say about the final exam. You're welcome to ask me questions about it. I know I think I've said this, and I will say it again, and I'm almost hesitant. I'm willing to read drafts if I can. This obviously is a very intensive part of the semester for you and also for me or your instructors, because we do have a lot of grading to do, and I may not be able to comment and read drafts. Certainly, if everyone were to send me a draft, I would not be able to get to them all, and then I wouldn't, because it would not be fair for me to, give feedback on, a third of the class's drafts and not have time to get to the rest. But that's never been. I've never been confronted with that problem, because I know that this is not the only final you have facing you, and I understand that. I do. I'm just making the offer. And that is also, I would be happy to look at, outlines. I'd be happy to look at, opening paragraphs or whatever. That as well is a possibility. Because this is your final chance. I mean, on the practical level, this is where you should be arguing for your grade, because the final could have a lot more weight than the 20% or whatever it is that it says in the syllabus. So there. Does that help? I hope so. So that being said, if you have any questions, do contact me. I hope to be available if there are issues in terms of my hip and medical reasons where I might not be as available as I might like. I will make an announcement about that. I will post an announcement. But I should know maybe more very shortly. Thank you again for this semester. I've enjoyed it a great deal, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your effort and your participation and your attendance. And good luck with finals. Good luck with this final. Good luck with all your finals. And I hope you know that all of you would be most welcome in any course I teach from this point on. And I hope to see you again around. So take care. Have a great holiday break. And put your best foot forward and get it done. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.